Welcome back to the Tool Crib. Today we are going to be looking at it's kind of a new multi-tool. This is a company I hadn't heard about until it got recommended to me a few months ago. And I bought this and I've had it for a little bit, but I just haven't had a chance to show it to you guys yet. So as you can see, it's brand new, still in the package. But what this is the BlackFire heavy-duty multi-tool. And the model number on this is an HDMT1, or Heavy Duty Multi-Tool 1. Now, this particular company, again, is out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but this particular model, or I assume most of their products are going to be manufactured in China. So it is Chinese manufactured, much like you find with Gerber and SOG for a lot of their stuff as well. A couple of unique features about this is going to have blunt nose pliers, and the screwdriver set is kind of those reversible style. So you get 4 different bits that come with the screwdriver itself, as well as a couple of hex drivers. So that makes it pretty unique in the world of multi-tools. So let's get this guy opened up and we'll get through some of the weights and dimensions of this thing, kind of set it against the surge, show you how big it is, and then we'll use it a little bit, see what it's all about. All right, to open this baby up, we're going to be using my Super Surge and the little package opener on it here. Let's get this guy opened up. And if we peel that out of there, there's our multi-tool. And if we get around here on the back, we have our case. Now, the case looks to be one of those hard nylon cases. It doesn't look like it's going to be the most compact case on the planet, but that's what you expect with some of these Chinese manufactured multi-tools. So let's take a look and see what we got. I think that's everything. We'll just set the packaging there to the side, and first we'll take a look at the case. So it is a snap closure. That's nice, and the stitching here is pretty decent on the back. It's going to accept a pretty wide belt there. Now, one thing, I don't know why they do this. I wish that they would leave these up a little higher. I for some reason, I don't like when they're the elastic or the belt strap is set down low like this. I would prefer it to be up a little higher. That's just personal preference for me. But all in all, the case is pretty decent and has a nice snap closure and the BlackFire logo. Let's take a look at the multi-tool and see how she fits in there. One thing I can tell you right off the start is the action on that is actually pretty nice. Kind of impressive, and with it seated in there, it seats in there quite compactly. Again, this is a little bulky of a case because it has, the stitching, it's just a little bulky is all. But it seems to fit the multi-tool quite nicely. Well, let's get the scale in here, and we'll take some measurements and kind of go over some of the specs of this thing, and then we'll bring the Leatherman Surge in, set it up against it, show you some size comparisons. Okay, so we'll start off in grams, see what we've got. 352 it looks like, and 12.45 ounces. So that's going to be right in the same weight range as the Leatherman Surge. Of course, I don't think it's going to have quite the capability, but it does have some nuanced things that make it better for certain tasks as well. So let's get a tape measure in here, and we're going to measure this thing off and see what we've got. So it's open dimensions. It's about 7 1/4. That's pretty close on par with what the Surge is. So if we get its overall length and its closed position, it's a little, one side of it comes down a little lower here, so we'll just give it the overall, and it's 4 1/2 inches. Total width is going to be about, looks 1 3/4, just a shade over that. And the thickness is 13/16 of an inch. So, as far as size goes, the overall footprint, it's not much bigger than the Surge itself. It's pretty on par. So there's a side by side. And then if we check out the width, and the Surge, you can see, will sit inside of the footprint of this one just slightly. So it's going to be pretty close to the same overall size of the Surge. It's actually not much bigger, and I'm really used to the weight of the Surge, so this doesn't feel bad at all. It is just maybe just a touch bulky, especially if you're more used to your standard size multi-tools, it might be a little overboard. Well, let's start going through the features of the BlackFire HDMT1. Well, one of the first things that struck me about this particular multi-tool, other than the action is actually really, really smooth. It's quite impressive, actually, was the size or the length of the soft wire cutters. So they are 5/8 of an inch is what I measured them out to be. And I've set the Leatherman Surge next to it. Now, this is my my modified Surge, where I modified EOD cutters to put on the Surge so I get better wire cutting capability. But you can see the comparison here. This has quite a bit more length overall for the cutters themselves, and obviously one of the glaring differences is the fact that the Surge is needle nose and this one is going to be blunt nose pliers. So I've got some 12 gauge here. Let's just take a look and see how it cuts and see how well it does. It makes a quite good cut, actually. Those are really, really good. I'm quite impressed with those, on considering how cheap this multi-tool was too. That makes a very nice cut. That's almost like your standard wire cutters that you would get off the, a good decent set of wire cutters. Now we're just gonna try to score this around here because I want to check out those blunt nose and see how well they grip. Oh yeah, that does quite fine. So using those cutters, normally it just works pretty well going around there, as long as you don't dig into it too deep. You can kind of use those as wire cutters, give it a little twist, and she comes right out. So the wire cutter portion of these is really quite impressive. They works really well. Now, one of the things that I want to note here is that the pliers actually sit off center of the multi-tool. So they're not, they're not truly centered like you'll find on a lot of other multi-tools, because they leave this portion on this one handle is set aside for the knife blade. So they're offset just a bit, one thing you need to be aware of. So I've been playing around with this. I wanted to kind of get a feel for how well it was put together. And I got to tell you, this thing is really quite solid. I can't get it to flex hardly anything. So very, very tight on the pliers themselves. And they come down to a nice grip point too. They just feel pretty good. They're really well made. Has aluminum scales on it and on all four corners here. So it's pretty comfortable. There's really no sharp edges because they put those aluminum scales out there. Gives it a nice feel, decent amount of grip. So if your hands are a little bit, oily or dirty, it has decent grip to it. So let's get it closed up here. And again, that action on there, that's really, really quite good. It's really kind of impressive. So let's take a look first. Let's see. So you notice that on both sides of this driver, it has a nail nick there, so you can easily get that out. And unfortunately, it does not lock. It has a slip joint that is not terrible, but personally, I don't like slip joints on screwdrivers because sometimes you're putting a lot of torque on these things, and that is a problem area for me anyway. So let's take a look at what drivers they come with. So looks like we've got a number 1 Phillips and a 3/16 on this side. And if we pull this out, now we've got a 1/4 inch and a number 2 Phillips. So good combination of wrenches as well. Now you can get 1/4 inch here and 5/16 nut driver here. So when we put these back together, and all these are ball detent. This is ball detented in here. These bits, these reversible bits, are ball detented into the housing itself. So I want to set the 2 Phillips outside, and we'll put that in there. So that is actually really solid, except for that slip joint. Man, I wish they would have not put a slip joint in there. Would have been so much better with a lock joint in there, but it seems to work pretty well. I mean, it feels solid. The mechanism itself feels really solid. This might be just a touch thin, so I guess over time you really have to use it, and it's something I'm not going to be able to tell you right off the start, but it feels pretty decent. It feels pretty decent. And the fact that they give you that 5/16 and 1/4 inch nut driver is actually quite nice. The only criticism I have of this right now is obviously going to be that locking, non-locking screwdriver there. So on the other side, we have our blade. Now this side is locking. It's liner locked here. Now, let me look at, I actually didn't check the blade material on this, and I don't know if it says it or not. So it claims it's a 2.9 inch drop point knife blade, but it doesn't specify what the blade steel is. So I'm uncertain as to what that blade steel is. So let's double check that length first of all and see if they're lying to us or not. And no, it's pretty close. It is 2 7/8 of an inch long, so pretty decent blade length on there. As a matter of fact, let me pull the surges out here real quick and kind of show you how it fares against the surge. And the surge is going to be a little bit longer, but it's a pretty decent blade. It's nice and straight across here. It is flat ground, but it appears to be a decent blade. And then they have it ground down here. It makes it come down to a pretty good point down there for that drop point. So overall, not bad. Let's get some, I'll tell you what, let me get some stuff together and we'll see how well it cuts. Well, I don't have a whole lot to work with here, so I just got a little piece of notebook paper and we'll just give it a try and see how it does. Oh my. That is really sharp, boys. That is actually really, really impressive. Considering that's on a multi-tool, and I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go back and look and see if I can find any information on the blade steel, and I'll try to put it in here. But that blade is actually quite impressive. I'm actually really impressed with that. They've got a really, really nice edge on that. I'm liking this multi-tool so far. Well, unfortunately, I haven't been able to find out anything about the blade steel in this particular multi-tool. I went to BlackFire's website, and what they listed it as is stainless steel. They do not specify what blade steel is in here, so I don't know how well it's going to hold its edge, but it feels like probably a 5, or maybe it's an 8 CR, I don't know, but it is definitely has a nice sharp edge on it from the factory, and the fact that it's liner locked is nice as well. So moving along, well, the next thing we have, I guess this one would double as a little bit of a screwdriver or pry tool if you needed to. So this is their combination file. The file, because of this blunt nose design, takes up a lot of room up here. You're going to get these other implements are going to be kind of shorter. The file has a decent amount of length. Let's check it out and see what it is overall. Looks to be about 1 3/4 inch. Well, no, it's a little longer. It's about 2 7/8 inches. So it's decent. The thing with files on multi-tools, if they don't have a really good length to them, they're not going to be very effective. The pattern on here seems to be pretty nice, and I don't know if I have anything. I'll tell you what, let me get something and we'll see how well the file works. Well, I don't seem to have a whole lot in the garage right now, just to hold, this was on a previous video where we cleaned this up with a 3M disc. So this is just a piece of 1 inch steel. We'll give it a try here and see how well this bites. Yeah, that's not very impressive. It's not really digging into that at all. So the file on steel is not working that well. I get a little bit of grip here on that edge. I guess it's working okay, but I know this is hard to pick up on camera. You can see that it's biting into that decently, and you get a little bit of metal shaving. So it's not terrible, but it could definitely stand to use some improvement. Now, this does not have an edge file. Now, the only thing I have for wood is just an old piece of birch plywood. And I just don't have any extra wood lying around, so we'll give it a try here and see how it works. Yeah, I mean, it gets into wood, okay, obviously it's going to be a lot softer, but it's really not, it really doesn't have a lot of bite to it. So this file, if I had to rate it from, give it a 1 to 10, it's probably going to be about a 4, somewhere in there. So it's not the greatest file in the world. Now, before moving on to these other interior tools, one thing I want to note is the rest of these tools are all slip joints, so none of them are going to be locking. That is kind of a disadvantage to me. Now, the next thing over is unique. You don't see this very often in multi-tools. It comes with an integrated number 2 Robertson. So for the electricians out there, that is a pretty common screw head for, for a number of different things in the electrical field, or if you happen to be from Canada, which they use up there quite a little bit. Again, the problem is this slip joint is actually pretty weak. It's actually weaker than that of the large screwdriver. So that is definitely a downfall. Now, what it does do is it kind of has a slip into the 90-degree position though, which is pretty nice. Next tool over is, oh my goodness. So we've got bottle cap lifters in. So let me actually read back here and see what they specify this as. So they call it out as just a bottle opener. So double-sided file, drop point knife, multi-bit driver, pliers, square number 2, and bottle opener. So this is really not a combination tool. It's just a bottle opener. It's a really thick out here on the outside, so I'm surprised that they didn't try to integrate this and make it into a can opener as well. But unfortunately, boy, it would have been nice if they'd had wire strippers on here, considering this is kind of set up to make a pretty decent electrical tool with that large wire cutting capability. The fact that it has the number 2 Robertson on there, it would have been nice if they would have integrated a wire stripper in here, because that is definitely one tool that this multi-tool lacks. Again, the action on here is very, very nice. It has it's almost as good as a Swiss tool. It really does operate smoothly. Nice wide area here for your wire cutting capability. Decent on the pliers as well. That looks like it's going to get onto 1/2 inch just fine. In fact, I don't have a whole lot here, and this is going to be kind of large for this. Yeah, it's going to be too much. I'll tell you what. I got my air chuck here. Let's see if it'll get on that. Yeah, it does. It gets on there pretty decently, actually. So it has a pretty decent range there. It's not the greatest main pliers. Excuse me there, moving the camera around. Not the greatest main pliers, but I'm really impressed with this blunt nose plier. Now, it's not crosshatch. It's just got single groove marks there. So it is not a crosshatch pattern, but the fitment on it is very, very nice. It looks like it'd be great for wire pulling as well. So it has some key benefits to it. I really like those pliers. I really do. They work really, really well. It would have been nice if they would have integrated like on the Leatherman Surge, where they have a crimper on the back of it too. So this is set up pretty decently as far as being kind of, in my mind, it would make a pretty decent electrical tool. It's a little bulky, and it's not quite as feature packed as what you're going to find with other tools. But these pliers, I could see overall the cutters, the main pliers, and the blunt nose being very, very useful in the electrical trades, and also this driver out here. If I had to rate this, I'm thinking it's going to fall. Boy, I really like this driver. I just wish it locked in place, and I really like that the pliers themselves, and some of the other tools a little subpar for me. I think they could have done a little better job integrating some different tools there. But I'm gonna say, because of those others and the fact that these other tools don't lock in, it's probably gonna fall into about the B range for me. It does feel nice, and it has very smooth action. I know I've said that a couple times, but I really can't say it enough, because it really does operate very smoothly. Very impressed with how long that pattern is there for that wire cutting. And the knife was really, really impressive. So it is one hand operational. I just wish they would have made some of those other implements locking on it as well, because I think they could have had a pretty good multi-tool here. It's a little bulky, but if you're accustomed to something like the Surge, then it's going to work just fine for you. It's, you know, as far as weight size goes, it's going to be on par with that of the Leatherman Surge or the Swiss tool. But the Surge and the Swiss tool both are going to be a lot more feature packed. This is going to be more specialized, but considering its price point, I've seen it vary a little bit from about $35 to $40. So overall, it really isn't bad. I think they could refine this model a little bit more and make it quite a bit better. I really would like to see them change just a few things and make this more orientated for the electrical trades, because with that plier configuration, if they were to match some of those other tools to better suit, you know, just make them a little bit better and maybe get rid of that can opener, do something a little different there. Definitely need a wire crimper, definitely need a wire stripper. This could be a pretty good electrical tool. As it is, I think it's a pretty good tool, and these are probably some of the best pliers I've ever seen as far as pliers themselves on a multi-tool. They really are quite impressive. I don't know what the steel is in there, and obviously you can tell that they're not replaceable wire cutters, but overall, I really like it. So this is the BlackFire HDMT1. Decently priced and decent features on it, but the pliers are going to be the main selling point, that and its knife blade. You've been watching the Texas Tool Crib. I appreciate your views, and I'll see you in the next one.